On Friday, August the 4th, the afternoon of Friday, I had a mayoral briefing. And the mayoral briefing, of course, was with Homeland Security, of course, the National Weather Service, all department leadership and partners to respond to issues, crises in the city of New Orleans. That briefing was about 2 hours. I left that briefing. It was all about excessive heat, the impacts on the city of New Orleans, the thought of the heat not slowing down, and the overall impact that it could have and is having on the city of New Orleans, our residents, as well as visitors in our community, but most importantly, the most vulnerable in our city. Had that briefing on Friday, and over the weekend, it really kept me just unable to sleep. Just thinking about the challenges, thinking about the unprecedented times that we're living in and having to live through. Yesterday, meeting with my senior leadership team, it became very apparent that the city of New Orleans needed to be proactive relative to the excessive heat that is, again, not going to slow down. The National Weather Service issued yet, as you know, another excessive heat warning. That is, temperatures that feel like 115 to 120 degrees. Not only for today, but the reality is it's not slowing down. We know that, as I just mentioned, this will not be the last heat advisory or excessive heat warning that we will experience this summer. What is uniquely to the city of New Orleans, and particularly being on the front lines of climate that has already changed, is that we're in the midst of hurricane season, but now in the month of our critical times as we face hurricanes, tropical storms, or weather inclements that come our way, which makes this even more of a priority, and one in where I stand as mayor, but even with my team, one that is critical times for us to be proactive and to do everything that we can as a city to ensure that we're meeting our people where they are, meeting the most vulnerable, and also putting in safeguards to prepare ourselves for what could come our way. But what is in our way is excessive heat, and the fact, again, we're in the middle of hurricane season. So far this summer, the coroner has reported 6 heat-related deaths. We understand even the nuances around the coroner being able to identify deaths associated with heat exhaustion. Dr. Vegno will speak to you more about that, and other leaders who are standing with me this afternoon. We also know that the effects of these hazards disproportionately, again, affect the most vulnerable in our community. Our young, our old, homeless, and even seasoned, I said old, I'm my seniors, but homeless, as well as our low-income communities of color in the city of New Orleans. Also, a significant portion of our population of our city, in terms of living with disabilities and chronic illness. We know, again, the disparity gaps that exist in these areas in terms of disabilities, as well as living with chronic illness in our city. These hot temperatures can become life-threatening if the proper precautions are not taken. What we're doing here as a city, taking the necessary precautions so that we can respond in real time and as necessary to meet our people again where they are with the resources and tools, the best that we can do in these unprecedented times. And unprecedented not just for the city of New Orleans nor the state of Louisiana, but this country. We know that. We also know that we owe it to one another to take this seriously. which is why my administration filed and I signed an emergency declaration for the ongoing unprecedented heat through October 1st of 2023. Again, wanting to get us through hurricane season. And again, while there has been no federal or state declaration at this time on excessive heat, we do understand and we recognize that the heat has become an unparalleled, ongoing crisis for the city of New Orleans, and of course across the country. So through this emergency declaration, the city will ensure that our New Orleans Recreation Department, all of our locations are open 7 days a week through the rest of the summer. Okay. We will also activate resources and personnel to support our unhoused outreach efforts. And this is on a daily and on an ongoing basis relative to this heat emergency. The city will also be able to open emergency contracting to complete emergency repairs, to protect city employees, outdoor workers, and first responders as we need to relative to extreme heat in our city. This is exactly why you've heard me and my team over and over talk about our fund balance. One, that this administration ensured that we were great stewards over the fiscal purse because, again, we're in the middle of, on the front lines of climate change, and this is yet another example of how we need to be able to stand up in real time to defend ourselves and our people in terms of what could come our way, but also what is now a part of our environment of existing conditions. So with that, I am going to ask several members of the team to step forward. This is teams of leadership team, partners, to give you more information. And as you know, we always go into Q&A, but right now I'm going to ask Mr. Benjamin Shute to come forward, and he is representing the National Weather Service on behalf of the City of New Orleans and the federal government. Thank you, Ben. Come on up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for having me here this afternoon. I'd like to start with, as the Mayor mentioned, we are enduring an unprecedented extended period of deadly heat. This is not a typical New Orleans summer. And no person alive in the city has ever experienced a summer like this in the city. And so I wanted to go through a number of facts that have occurred over the course of the last couple of weeks, if not months, as we went into the summer. Records are being shattered all across southeast Louisiana and coastal Mississippi every single day. At a minimum, many of them are being tied, if not shattered. And so July, for starters, though it's now August, was the warmest July on record for the city. And it was the second warmest month ever for the city of New Orleans. So when you think about that as a starting point, as we've already had this record heat in place for over a month. At the airport, we have had 9 of 10 days above 98 degrees. 4 of those have been over 100, and the last 3 were 100 degrees. Today, before I arrived here, the high was 97, which also tied the high for today. So we can throw on another record on top of there. The airport has never recorded 4 days in a row of 100, though it doesn't look like we're going to do that today. We are looking at forecasts for temperatures in the upper 90s and the low 100s through possibly the weekend, if not the next 5 to 10 days. The airport has never recorded 5 days in a row of 98 or higher, and we broke that record yesterday. We have broken or tied record high temperatures in the last 6 days, including, again, like I mentioned today, the 97 that we tied. The temperature has only dropped under 80 degrees once in the last 8 days, and 5 of those 8 days were the warmest overnight temperature for that day. Heat indices have reached or exceeded 115 in each of the last 4 days. And here's a fact, if you want to think, a lot of those temperatures are based off the airport, which is at Kenner. So you could say, well, does that really represent what's going on here in the city? So let me give you some information about Audubon Park, which has a record that goes back to 1894. So within a very extensive climatic record there, we are on track for the hottest summer on record, and we've already had the hottest start to August on record. So with all those numbers, you can see that this isn't a normal, typical summer. It isn't just another heat wave. This is something that no one in this area has seen or witnessed or lived through before. And so before this heat emergency is over, my last statement is this is likely to continue, and we're likely to continue to shatter records or tie records or go through these same types of conditions at a minimum for the next 5 to 10 days. A lot of the computer models are not showing any breakdown of this heat dome or the pattern. There may be the opportunities for a few more cooling showers as we get later on into the week or early next week. But as a whole, this pattern looks to be locked in place for quite some time. So with that, I'll end my statement. Thank you.
Thank you.